Hello, everybody, and welcome to what is actually the first episode of Interactive Wrestling Radio of the year 2012. It is your usual suspects here, James Walsh, joined as always by Mr. Patrick Kelly.
Howdy, howdy.
And Captain Nick Knoll is with us as well.
Okay, how did I get promoted to captain?
I don't know. When I was thinking about ways of introducing you earlier, I was going to call you the Mighty NN, but I thought that...
what you could call me is I've kind of been joking around with, Austin Aries, the TNA X Division champion. He always refers to himself as A double, and I'm now referring to myself as N double.
Yeah. I also think of the $6 Million Man.
That sound effect is pretty sweet.
There you go. All right. So either way, there you go. And basically, guys, I think we're going to have a few differentiating opinions this week about this past week in wrestling. And it's been an exciting week. You have one company over in England in front of probably amongst the largest crowds they've ever played to, and apparently the loudest crowd they've ever played to, with Impact Wrestling, or TNA. And you had WWE holding one of their flagship events, the Royal Rumble, which, I think we're going to mixed bag result of people's opinions on this line about it. And why don't we start with the Royal Rumble and go then to Impact Wrestling? So, first of all, hey, Sheamus wins, and the Rumble itself was interesting. And what do you guys think overall? Pat, why don't you go first, and then I'll let Nick.
Well, my honest take on the Royal Rumble as a whole, I know Nick thought it was like a disaster, and, read his Facebook posts. They were pretty hilarious. Personally, when the show was over, and I did watch it live, I just sat there and I was like, that was it? For the second biggest pay-per-view of the year, and for the one that's supposed to jumpstart the road to WrestleMania, and I called it in, various times, I called the Royal Rumble the playoffs of the WWE because it's supposed to set up WrestleMania. And for a setup to WrestleMania, and just as a pay-per-view in general, which was supposed to be a major event, I thought it was a very empty and lackluster show. Like, I didn't think it was like the worst thing I've ever seen, but it was just so empty. I felt like nothing happened. No resolutions, not a lot of great matches. It was just kind of, eh.
I think we know how Nick felt, but Nick, what did you think of it?
I think this pay-per-view proved how horrible the WWE is at building up its own roster. I mean, to be perfectly honest, Sheamus, I like Sheamus. He's one of my favorite guys in the WWE right now, but they haven't done anything with him other than have him kind of be randomly having matches with Jinder Mahal and occasionally kind of showing up to kind of stick up for Hornswoggle. I mean, they haven't built him up at all. It's very similar to Del Rio last year, where it's like, really, that's who they're going with to win the Royal Rumble? And look, the Kane-John Cena feud, I'm not enjoying. I think it's hokey. You're asking bad actors to do deep acting. You have Cena trying to do his typical "I'm angry now" face. You have Eve Torres, who I swear to God, I've seen better acting in pornography than what she can do. And I just had the same old boring Kane character. They're acting like, oh, it's Kane, he's more evil than ever. And then the Royal Rumble was a fucking joke. You've got kings in the Royal Rumble. You have Booker T in the Royal Rumble. You have Michael Cole in the Royal Rumble. You have Jim Duggan coming out with his, oh, yeah, it's awesome. Okay, this is boring. Where the fuck is somebody that's actually decent? And you have these piped-in USA chants.
Oh, I don't know.
They went way too... James, you made a point of saying, oh, well, remind us why we're all wrestling fans. That's fine if you have one or two guys doing it, but almost every other entry in the Royal Rumble was someone that hadn't been on, that was a joke. I mean, you had Road Dogg was back all of a sudden. You had Jerry Lawler jumping in there again. It's one thing to do a nostalgia pop like once or twice to be funny. It's like when you're watching a movie and there's a little inside joke. I was watching 2.5 Men on a little bit on Monday, and at the end of it, Alan went, winning.
Yeah,
i.e. taking a little shot at Charlie Sheen. If the whole
Charlie
show,
Sheen, by the way, called him a troll.
Yeah, but that's it. To me, it's like, but if the whole segment, if the whole episode is about making fun of Charlie every single week, that gets old. And to me, it's like, okay, you want to bring Hacksaw back, that's fine. But you're also going to bring back Road Dogg, and put Booker T in there. It's like, seriously, people started predicting Doink was next, and people started wondering where that, Mick Foley was back for, no apparent reason other than, he was here in the Attitude Era. I honestly feel like if you want to do a nostalgia pop, that's one thing, but you can't have it be 10%. 1/3 of the Rumble felt like it was all joke entries. I mean, they had another woman enter the Royal Rumble, which was Karma.
Now, I agree with you, Nick, to a degree, but I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit, and I'm going to build off what you said about the WWE's roster and how they do such a poor job of building up and establishing their new guys. I agree with you that having too many nostalgia pops and big silly returns like that, it was too much. But if they didn't have those things in this Rumble, I felt like we would have nothing to talk about because there were so many entrants in this Rumble. Jinder Mahal, Hunico, who has a side chick now, who I have no idea who he is. Epico and Primo, they're the tag team champions now. Didn't know that. I didn't know that Primo still had a job, to be perfectly honest with you. It tells you how much I follow SmackDown. Ezekiel Jackson, didn't know he still had a job. There's so many guys like that. That was another third of the Rumble right there, just a bunch of just useless no-names. And really...
About Ezekiel Jackson, I got to say this. Did you guys notice Nick said piped-in crowd noise? It wasn't piped in, but the crowd did chant something at Zeke that I thought was very funny. They started chanting Ahmed Johnson.
Oh, he is Ahmed Johnson. He is Ahmed Johnson.
Pretty much, yeah. But go ahead.
Patrick, I agree with you on that comment that so many of the guys are, not built up properly. The problem is, though, to me, we saw part of the reason why. It's every time they have a chance to build somebody up, it's like, I don't know, let's just bring somebody back, or let's give that time to the old-timers,
Yeah, but you say that, but then again, last year's Rumble was a nightmare. I mean, the only thing that
they had too many old-timers.
If anything, that's the only thing people talked about it. They certainly weren't talking about the guy who won it. The only thing I remember people talking about was the return of Booker T and Kevin Nash, and that was largely because,
again, because their new guys were not built up well, and nobody cared about them, and that falls more on creative than it does on the guys. Hunico might be a very talented guy. I don't know. He's never been featured in a way that it makes me believe that he's worth checking out. And even the guys that they tried to make look good, like Miz and Cody, because they lasted a long time, I forgot they were there half the time.
Miz especially. Cody did a good job of poking his head around more and kind of like, oh, wow, he's still in there, and tossing out guys here and there. Miz was very much just there.
Right. I mean, I agree with you guys on those points. That's on creative. And this is something that I always dislike is that, okay, the Rumble is one of the really big paychecks for the guys that work every single house show or are always on the road gets. Well, a couple of guys lost out on pretty decent paychecks, and that's something that kind of irritates me, especially when we're about to go to WrestleMania, and it looks like it's going to be an Attitude Era reunion. And going back to something that we've talked about for years on this show, it is now 2012. We're still relying on guys from 1999 on back to sell our pay-per-views. And yes, why you are still going to get that nostalgia pop reaction, at some point, you've got to fucking pull the bandage off and move forward. And yes, it's going to fucking suck. We're going to go down. We're going to go back to less people. But you know what? Raw, most of the last few months, has drawn under a 3. At some point, you have to say, okay, we can't rely on Hulk Hogan for another 5 years. It's time to take a risk and put the belt on Bret Hart. And now it's, Bret Hart's gone. You got to put the belt on us.
I'd make a better analogy. I think WWE has become WCW in that sense.
Yes. And you know what? TNA's got to do it too.
Jerry Lawler getting world title shots. I mean, Jesus, that would have been okay if the WWF had given Lawler a title shot in '98. It would have been stupid then. You had 13 years onto that. And it's like, what the hell is this? And for some reason, the internet kind of supported them on that decision, and I just couldn't fathom it. I mean, it's like you're praising WWE for the things that you made fun of WCW for doing 15 years ago.
Positively, and with a much older guy, because Lawler was older, older than the WCW guys when they were getting called old, and he had 13 years to that. So
right, and let's be honest, and I'm not going to really try. I don't want to disrespect Jerry Lawler too heavily, but he's not. He was never in terms of a national population as big a star as Hulk Hogan was, as Randy Savage was, as Kevin Nash was. And that's not to say that, well, if they bring Hulk Hogan back, it's going to make everything okay. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't want to jump too far into the TNA thing here, and I know that this is going to piss James off because I talked about how we need to stay on a format, but, TNA is going to have Hulk Hogan close some shows in the upcoming weeks. I think that's a bad idea. If you want to have Hulk Hogan, that's fine, but don't have him be the last image on your show. And it's the same way. I mean, it's like, and on Raw on Monday night, Undertaker's back. Triple H and he are going to have another big, long match at WrestleMania. It's like, yeah, maybe it's going to hurt to short term, but long term, at some point, you have to start mixing in newer guys. Ideally, this business works with a constant building up of young, fresh talent. Go back and look at...
I like Undertaker's weight, by the way.
Well, I think I'm starting to wonder if the Undertaker's anorexic. Because he looks like he keeps shrinking.
Oh, he is getting older, and you do get, gravity. Gravity does affect you as you get older.
And apparently his neck and hips are so shot he can't lift weights or get on a treadmill.
Well, you know what?
Do people think his entrance is a long time before?
Nick, I'm fine with Duggan being in. King, it was a comedy spot having King and Booker join in there. And same with Cole. I agree. Maybe they should have put other people in there, but I don't have a problem with it because it gave people something to talk about. And to be honest with you, the talent that they have wasn't going to get the job done. But I do want to talk, and I'm prefacing that based on the year prior where, my opinion was half the guys that were coming in was like, all right, who the hell is he?
All right, you know what, James, I agree with you on that. And I think what's happening is I'm trying to talk about in a broader sense going on.
I don't think, let me put it this way, I get what you're saying, but I don't think the things were in place for that to have happened. In a perfect world, these guys would be more over. They would be more colorful characters. They would be over, and the young guys would be, let's be honest. We're talking about Road Dogg making a comeback. Road Dogg was never a top-tier guy. He mooched off the DX thing, but he never was top-tier. I mean, even in TNA, he was kind of bottom of the card.
Yeah.
And people got sick of him.
And I want to make a point here, and it's something that I go back and look at, like, the really, really strong years in the WWE. Like, for example, when Road Dogg was at his quote-unquote peak, even though when you saw Road Dogg come into the Royal Rumble, you knew who he was. He had a fan base. You knew what his storyline was going in. We don't have that anymore in, like, the modern WWE. Like Patrick said, we have Hunico and a sidekick who pedals him to the ring on a bicycle for some reason. Okay, why?
A lowrider bicycle, no less.
Yes, I mean, it's like, I agree with you, and you're absolutely right, James. There isn't a strong enough roster right now to do that. They do kind of have to rely on the older guys, but I kind of feel like they rely.
But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but of course, we've been saying that ever since before. You guys have been saying that since before I started on this show, and and look, like I said, I think they might have gone just a little too far with it, where it's like, okay, the second Booker jumps up, you're like, okay, Cole's coming in. We all know that's coming, right? Yeah, we all know Cole's coming in. Oh, wow, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Hey, and I might have said Duggan I'm not taking a shot actually at Jim Duggan, himself. What I'm saying is bringing in guys like Jim Duggan is the same way as like when they brought back Piper and Snuka a couple of years ago, and they did that big moment where they just kind of generically ran at each other and swung, missing each other.
Well, one that I will defend, one entrance that I will defend, I do like that they put Karma in this because I do believe that she is a female talent that you could believably put up against men, and it'll work.
Oh, yeah.
And
I want to say this, too. I want to give a guy
a
quick. Dolph Ziggler might be my favorite guy to watch in the ring right now. He's just he is amazing. I mean, I want a paternity test. I want to see if him and McGillicuddy are brothers, because I believe that he is Curt Hennig's kid. He's the only guy I can compare him to. He looks like him. He works like him. He's like a smaller but faster version of Curt Hennig, and that is something to be proud of. He's amazing.
Right. Yeah, and he's great. I was telling you on the phone, James, earlier today, he's the best pure seller in the business. Like, nobody sells as well as Ziggler does right now. He is just amazing. It's just a shame that he's hindered by, I think Vicky hinders him, and we kind of forget this, but that stupid name kind of hinders him as well.
Yeah. He's gotten past the name, though. He's gotten past the name.
And I'll say this, he had a great match with Punk at the pay-per-view. The problem was, I felt like the finish of that killed off what they were going for. Like, it was like, okay, Johnny Ace doesn't want to get in the ring because he doesn't want to risk losing his job tomorrow. It's like, okay, hey, what? Come on, guys, get to the point.
Yeah. In a sense, it almost felt like they were building towards Raw instead of the pay-per-view we just spent money to see.
Right.
Which I'll say this again, and I've said this before, WWE, TNA, special message to you, I don't care who's in charge of the show. I don't care anymore. Okay, so stop doing angles about it. I really don't care. I don't care. Don't care.
Right. I mean, and now I just have to wonder, so I guess Triple H feuding with The Undertaker means Johnny Ace keeps his job?
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense. I guess it just means Triple H is preoccupied and as such won't opt to take over. It wasn't very well done. In fact, if I was watching it, it was didn't know better. It almost seemed like Undertaker was stopping him from firing Johnny Ace. But
yeah,
there you go.
I mean,
I'm going to go in a sec, but I do want to make this point before I do go. As I enjoyed the Rumble for what it was. Things like Kofi Kingston's hand walk was phenomenal.
That was amazing, too. Yes.
There was some really good things in this thing. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. And, 6 years ago, there was that god-awful Rumble with, I don't even remember who won. I guess it was Orton.
No, Ray won, but it was the stuff surrounding the Rumble that sucked, like Edge dropping the belt to Cena and the main event being Kurt Angle versus Mark Henry. Those were the shitty things.
Because Undertaker was the show.
Yeah, that was just a really god-awful Rumble. This was, I felt more enthused by it. And, again, another thing I wanted to praise the crowd for. The crowd was a big savior of the show because the Ahmed Johnson pop got me laughing. And the announcers never comment on CM Punk doing the big elbow as a Randy Savage nod. So the crowd took it upon themselves to make sure people knew it.
Well, yeah. To be honest, though, James, if Cole or Kings, well, Cole, I don't even know. I have a general belief that I have no idea who Randy Savage is. And if King tried to mention that, Vince would be screaming their ears off.
What did they say wrong? They said something, I can't remember. Cole mispronounced the Legend's name the other day on Raw last week. Not yesterday, but the week prior. And it was like, really? I can't even remember what it was, though. If I remember it, I'll tell you. But, yeah, I mean, I could see that. I think Cole, you have to know who Savage is. But, yeah, I could see that they'd still be afraid of Vince, screaming. But still, I like that the crowd chanted Randy Savage. And it is a nod to Savage. And anybody who doubts that, look at the Monday Night Raw that followed after Savage's death. CM Punk
he was wearing the tights.
Yeah. So it's a nod to Savage. End of story.
Right.
Anybody who tries to argue, I'm going to just shoot down. So
it's the same way Christian does the Frog Splash in tribute to Eddie Guerrero.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Well, I think now we're going to get to the part where Nick is going to be happy because we're going to talk a little bit about Impact Wrestling's tapings in the UK, and it sounds like it was successful. They played the Wembley.
Which I did not read the spoilers, so I completely forgot that they were taping those shows.
Yeah,
they were doing that this week.
Now, this is Wembley Arena, not the big soccer stadium that they held SummerSlam in. It's the actual, arena that accompanies it. it's a big.
Well, the old one got torn down, didn't it?
They tore it down, but they built it back up. I mean, it's like what they did with Giant Stadium. It's it's still there, but it's just in a slightly different spot and a newer facility.
MetLife, yeah.
MetLife Stadium. Well, it's the same place. It's in the parking lot of where the old one was, essentially. So.
Yeah.
So wait, when they rebuilt Giant Stadium, did they move Jimmy Hoffa?
They actually, you know what? That was in the news. They actually did dig under the goalposts to see if anything was there, and there were no remains. So apparently, it was just a wisetail.
Interesting.
Okay.
I'm going to head off, guys, but I'll let you guys handle TNA discussion.
Okie dokie.
I mean, I don't want to spoil it for Patrick, but you know what? In London, what they essentially were doing was doing the final build-up to the Against All Odds pay-per-view, where they set in stone the world title main events, which will feature more than two guys, which I think is a good move because the big match I hope TNA is building towards is Rude versus Storm one-on-one, and if you're going to have them touch in any way, you don't want to give away the one-on-one match at a B pay-per-view.
Right, I would even, of course this is just me being old school, like I wouldn't even put them in the four-way. Like I probably would do, I assume the four-way it's Rude, Storm, Hardy, and Ray, right?
Yeah. Which, I mean, I actually agree with you on that. I wish that they weren't doing it. I wish that what they would have done is either put Rude in like a tag team match with like Ray and Hardy versus another babyface besides Storm, and I don't know, or done Storm versus Ray, just to kind of kill time. Like you could have Rude, like similar storyline I would do is have Rude give Ray like $25,000 and say, here, and you'll get another $25,000 when you take James Storm out. Go.
I'll give full credit here. Bully Ray has really impressed me as a singles guy.
Yes.
Like, he's way better than I ever thought he would be. I'm not saying he's world title worthy, but he's really stepped in that spot much better than I think anybody expected.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you can also tell just because the sheer amount of weight he has lost. He actually does look to be in pretty decent shape. I mean, he's never going to be, one of these really ripped, cut up guys. I mean, he's dropped a ton of weight. I mean, the guy used to be a big gelatinous sack of goo.
Oh, I remember. Look at him when he first got to TNA, and him. Which pay-per-view was it? I want to say it was Against All Odds 06, and it was 3D having a tag match with Team Canada. He looked bloated in that match.
Yeah, he did, and he really did. He has really slimmed down. And I think what helps is that the gimmick is somewhat true to life. Where let's just say many of the stories we've heard about Bully Ray lead us to believe that he's a rather rough guy with people.
Everybody I've ever talked to that's met him has told me he's an asshole. So it's never what it's worth. Yeah, so I think that helps. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think if he ever becomes world champion, it's a bad move. But I don't even think he should. If he ever is in a one-on-one match for the world title at a pay-per-view, it's a horrible move. But I mean, I think he's good. It's kind of like that good kind of number two, heel to kind of help out a guy like Rude, who, his whole gimmick has been about, I'm going to take the cheapest way out possible. If that's kicking the referee so I get disqualified, good. If that's, I'm going to kick a guy, when his back's turned, great. And if that's, I got to hire Big Bully Ray to take care of me, more power to me. Which, by the way, I really do love the character that Bobby Roode is playing. Oh, Bobby's been great ever since they've done this heel turn. I think he's, and I'm glad that even though and I've said this in one of my videos, they need to be careful with doing so many DQ and draw finishes on pay-per-view in their main events, because I think that's going to hurt in the long run if you make that a standard. But I think making Rude this weasel heel that'll, cheat and connive his way to wrinkle out with the title at any cost, I think is really good for him. And I'm glad that they've stuck with him, because I was fearful that they were going to put the belt on Hardy.
Right. And I still go back, and there's a part of me that wishes he would have won the belt and then kind of developed into this over time. but I like how they're doing it, and I agree with you. Some people, like you said, are going to get ticked off about, him kind of being a weasel, but you know what? That's him making people hate him. That's the point of a heel wrestler. The point of a heel wrestler is not to look cool and fuck all the girls and come out and spit water on yourself and carry a big sledgehammer and never make anyone else look good. You big big nose son of a bitch with your stringy hair. I hate you, God damn it. It's to make people hate you, but make them hate you in a way, they'll pay money to see you get your ass kicked.
Which he's going to get the belt at least until lockdown. Like, I would think that's going to, so again, we'll see how that all develops and turns out. But did anything of interest happen at these spoiler tapings? I know Hogan got in the ring, apparently. Like, I don't know if is that actually going to be part of the Impact, that tag match?
No, unless I'm wrong, he did wrestle very limitedly. He did like a 6-man tag, I think, with Storm and Sting as his partners against. So, that was my cell phone going off. Could you hold on? Could you hold on? I gotta, maybe, I don't know, just kind of give you, just talk about anything for 2 minutes while I kind of just check my cell phone real quick.
Alrighty, man.
Alright.
Okay, Nick will be back on the line in a minute, and I've got 2 minutes to stall. Gee, what am I going to talk about? God. Again, I didn't read the Impact spoilers. I forgot that they were taping over there in the UK, although I do like that they're taping any episodes outside of the Impact zone. I think is a good thing because I'm so sick of that fucking soundstage. So I hope that the UK crowd and the UK venue brings a new life and energy to the show that they usually get whenever they do Impact on the road. Like, whenever Impact's on the road, compared to the Impact zone, it feels like a completely different show. And even if the same booking mistakes are there, at least the energy of the show is a lot better. And I feel like it's a more worthwhile experience. And I hope that they get to a point where they can do every Impact on the road and we don't have to worry about that anymore. But so that'll be really good. I'm going to check out those shows, definitely.
And that's the coolest poster, by the way, that they've put out in a long time.
Oh, what poster?
They put out a poster for the TNA Impact tapings. And
I'm back.
There's Nick.
There's Nick. Yeah, I'm here real quick. They put out a poster for the Impact tapings, and it's got Hogan and Sting on top, and it's got Jarrett and doing other things, and Angle, and it's just a very, very cool-looking poster. It's kind of, somebody on our Facebook page actually said it looks like an old PWI magazine cover, and I was like, you know what? It kind of does, and that's really awesome.
Cool. I'll have to look at it. I haven't seen it.
And I'm looking forward to the shows, and I haven't heard what you guys said about it. I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like. Just with like I did hear Pat say, the different crowd reaction. Because Nick, I know you're a TNA fan, but you have to, looking at it objectively, you have to see that the familiarity of the crowd with the talent results in a less excited sounding crowd, and unfortunately, that results in just not as compelling television.
Yeah, but I'll be honest. I think sometimes people that's true. But unlike you guys, I don't like. I like it when they're on the road, but I'm not going to get pissed off when it's in the Impact zone. There are reasons why they don't go out on the road, and it is to save money. And I agree with you. They should be on the road more. But to me, it's like, okay, I get over it in 2 seconds. Once they start. Actually film the show because I get into the vein of what's going on in the show, and I don't, I'll be honest. I mean, like, I listen to crowd reaction. I think sometimes it's more exciting than when you see some of the shit in, like, a Ring of Honor, which has this the generic program. That was awesome. ROH. At every,
it's almost
arena.
Like you're playing a video game where there's only 3 different crowd reactions, isn't it?
Right.
What's Ring of Honor even doing now? Like, I haven't heard any news about them since they got onto Sinclair.
You know what? They're still just a B-level promotion, and people don't want to hear that. But you know, they're taping their little shows, and they're not gonna, you know, that's it.
And it's not as exciting as it used to be because for whatever reason people stop believing the hype.
It's because they don't have the right people all over the company. They have a lot of talented wrestlers, and they don't have the same good booking that they used to have. And to be fair, Gabe was burned out after the Combat Zone War, but they don't have, you know, that same spark that they once had. It did put on a lot of really good shows, and they rely on it's almost like a parody of itself, where it's like there are certain rules in place that they're going to stick to regardless of what's going on. And you have, I say it a million times, it's Smoky Mountain 2.0. Jim Cornette is trying to recreate his failed wrestling promotion from the mid-'90s. You know, it's like...
Well, that's not fair, Nick, because I actually like Smoky Mountain. I don't care
well,
much
it's not that it was bad. Right, it's not that Smoky Mountain was bad. It was just that it was 70s wrestling trying to make it in the 90s, and it didn't work.
Right. And you can look at it and see it. It's that same vein. It's Cornette trying to recreate Smoky Mountain. It's Cornette trying to recreate the, you know, NWA. I mean, they don't, you know, they don't run, like a lot of their shows now take place in, you know, Virginia and Charlotte, and those are good wrestling territories, but they hit those up so much now. And then, you know, you see the crowd results, like 500 people showed up at, like, one of their last big events. It's like, okay, you guys could go run Chicago, where you've always been pretty hot, and draw, you know, well over 1,000 people, which for you would be a huge crowd. But you don't do that anymore because I guess that was AWA country. You know.
Well, that's not... NWA ran there, too. They did the Chi-Town Rumble there.
Yeah, and they also did... They also did a Starrcade 87, which was a horribly booked idea, which is, I know, we're going to put the belt on rugged Ron Garvin, and he won't defend the belt for 40 days, and then we're going to have him drop it back to Ric Flair.
Yep.
Which, if any feud takes away the notion that, you know, Ric Flair was a singular draw, and when Eric was on the show, I used to say this too, that there is no such thing as a singular draw. It's the storyline and who's bouncing off of who and who's working with who that draws. Ric Flair could not draw with anybody, and I think that feud with Ronnie Garvin was proof of it.
Well, I mean, if he would have dropped the belt with someone like Dusty or Barry Windham, maybe it would have done better, but...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All due respect to Ron Garvin, he just was not a world champion. It's like putting Roderick Strong... It's like giving Roderick Strong the world title. Oh, wait, ROH did that.
And Ronnie Garvin's more charismatic than Roderick Strong. I'm sorry. I actually I remember liking Ronnie Garvin, but never as a main event guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, it might sound like I'm burying everyone that ever worked prior to the founding of TNA, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm not. I do like Ronnie Garvin. It's just him. He was not a world champion. You know, he was not that guy that should have won that belt. You know, it was either keep the belt on Flair and do something else, or, you know, don't have him drop it to Ron Garvin, you know, and it's, you know, that's some of the same problem I think Ring of Honor has right now, where they go with these guys that are really good in-ring wrestlers, but I don't think they're being built up properly outside of the ring. I mean, it's like they put the belt on Eddie Edwards, and it was like, okay, really, you're going to give the belt to Edwards first before you give it to Davey Richards? I mean, it's like...
Sheamus run.
Yeah, it was a Sheamus run, and I said that, and then Ring of Honor blocked me.
What?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, which by the way, I Ring of Honor, I actually did. I had them on Facebook, and you know, they posted a big picture of Eddie Edwards winning the ROH World Title, and I said, wow, that's like Sheamus winning the WWE title. The guy's got a lot of talent, but he's clearly not ready. Blocked.
Did they really do that?
Yeah, they blocked me.
That's funny.
And look, if there were things they could have blocked me for, they could have blocked me for a hell of a lot worse than, wow, that's kind of like Sheamus winning the world title.
Hey, you know what? I've only been blocked once in my Facebook life, and it was by former host of the show, Eric Clancy, after the Jets had lost a very serious game last season. I made a comment. He made a comment. I made a comment then about the health care bill that was in the news at the time, and he blocked me. And I can't even send him a message to say, hey, dude, you all right? He blocked me. I can't even view anything he's doing. If I try to go to his Facebook wall, it takes me back to my news stream. He blocked me.
That is hilarious. Good old Eric.
Yeah, Eric could be. Eric was a very stiff drink. Sometimes he gives you a headache.
Well, we talked about Sheamus, and that's something about the Royal Rumble that we completely forgot to talk about, probably because it was so underwhelming. Was I the only one that felt nothing when Sheamus won the Rumble, or was that just me?
Oh, I agree. I think I thought I mentioned it, but it's very similar to Del Rio winning it last year. It's like, really? That's who you're going with? And it felt like they gave it to him because so many people thought Jericho or Orton was going to win.
Which is stupid because, they're the ones that set up Jericho for the win. And there was, again, when I talked about the Rumble, there was no resolutions. Look, the week on Raw, they said, Jericho said, this Sunday will be the end of the world as you know it. That's a pretty heavy line to use to sell your pay-per-view. And then you tune in and nothing happens. Even after Sheamus won, I was like, okay, Jericho's going to do something. No?
Right.
No? That's it? Oh, okay.
You kind of get the feeling that Sheamus will lose his title shot at some point before Mania. Because, it's like they just haven't done enough with him lately. I mean, again, I like Sheamus. I thought, wow, this guy's got a lot of potential. I thought him winning the title was way too soon. But it's like, they haven't done enough to kind of build him back up. I mean, it's like, wow, we're just going to throw the belt on him randomly. This is supposed to be the biggest event of the year. You've got to have a strong storyline going into it with your title matches. I know there's probably going to be a lot of complaints to see of, oh, well, we got Rock Cena. That's going to be our draw no matter what. Absolutely. But it's like, doesn't mean you should just haphazardly slap together the rest of the card and say, oh, yeah, we'll do Sheamus versus Daniel Bryan. We'll figure it out.
And that's going to be, you pitched that match to me, Daniel Bryan and Sheamus. That sounds like it's going to be what Edge and Del Rio was, which was the opening match. And I'm thinking, because that's going to be the secondary title match. And we all know we're going to get Punk and Jericho. Why not end the Royal Rumble with the stare down between Jericho and Punk to sell Punk and Jericho at Mania? Because that's going to be the bigger title match anyway.
Right. And, look, I'll say it. I don't think Jericho's on fire with this story. I think they're trying to draw a story out, but they're not doing it properly, where it's like, okay, so far all he's really done is shown up and walked around. You're giving me no reason to believe he won't do anything different next week. And I get, it's not an issue of,
up until that one line, really, next week, this Sunday will be the end of the world as you know it. That genuinely got, I wonder what's going to happen. And nothing happened. And then he just randomly attacked Punk the next night on Raw. It's like, well, okay. Like, that's your story now.
Yeah. It's like this. I mean, what's weird is we got, these really dark, gothic promos from him with, the creepy little kid. And you're like, oh, man, I wonder what the character's going to be like this time, And then he just comes out and he's like, yeah, baby, woo, yeah, woo. Yeah, it's like, okay, you're Ric Flair at his drunken worst? I imagine that's what it's like when Ric Flair's drunk.
Yeah. And another story that doesn't make sense, and I'm asking, because this really confuses me, I'm asking somebody to explain to me what it means when Kane says, I want Cena to embrace the hate. How does Cena do that exactly? Like, if a psychopath abducts my family, puts a gun to their heads, and says, if you don't embrace the hate, Patrick, I'm going to kill your family. I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to embrace the hate. I don't know what that means. I don't know what you want me to do. What does that entail exactly? Do I have to join the Ku Klux Klan? Do I have to become a neo-Nazi? What?
Yeah, I mean that, and then also the problem is they're going to try to like build this into, oh my God, Cena's really changing when he's acting like he always does when he beats someone up. You know, he's being a goofball. You know, it's like they're.
Oh, he was smiling the whole time on Raw. He looks silly.
Right. I mean, it's like okay. I mean, it's like as I often say, Cena has three faces: goofball, sad, angry. It's like, well, there's no depth to this character. And what, and like you said, okay, he embraces the hate. So, what, Kane wants him to beat him up? And, like, really, what does that accomplish, Kane? I mean, are you trying to turn him heel so you can become a hero or something? I don't know. Like, what's the point here?
I don't know. It feels like it's like a bad movie when it tries to be deep, but really what they're trying to get across is just harebrained and doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, and unfortunately, it's like it's almost every other time Cena's had a big rival that he hates. I mean, Zack Ryder is basically playing the role that John Cena Sr. played when Randy Orton kicked him a few times.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I mean, they're adding Eve into it. It's like, you know, she's like, this is all your fault. Like, I'll say this one, it's like, yeah, I'm not the one that's beating him up. It's the big dumb motherfucker in a mask.
Which, again, is Ryder getting beat up going to be a weekly thing now? Because, again, at the Rumble, there was absolutely no resolution to Cena and Kane at all, or advancement. They just did the same thing they did on Raw. He beat up Ryder, and that was it.
Right.
For the third or fourth time in a row.
Right. You know, unfortunately, I feel like it's weird because we're finally getting what we want, which is more Zack Ryder. Yet I honestly feel like, you know what? Okay, it's like, yeah, it beats him getting fired from the WWE, but it's like, really, you know, it's like you can't do anything else with this guy than make him Kane's punching bag and have him be seen as little buddy.
Yeah, well, that's how you get a guy over. You got to make him the top guy's buddy.
Apparently.
Mm-hmm.
That's more or less what they've been doing ever since. I mean, like, Cody got over because he was Orton's buddy, and
yeah. But, yeah, what else is there to talk about regarding the TNA spoilers?
All right. I mean, nothing too heavy. I mean, they're building towards the pay-per-view. I'm glad to see Alex Shelley is back, which will give
absolutely.
Which will give a much-needed breath of fresh air to the X Division. I mean, I'll say this. At long last, the X Division is getting featured fairly regularly again on the main show. The problem is they kind of kept relying on the same set of guys. I think part of that was that Shelley was out. Now that he's back, it's like, okay, here's something new or something we can pick back up. It's Shelley versus Aries, and I think those matches should be pretty good.
Right, and when Sabin comes back, we'll have the Guns back in the tag division. Well, that's really going to help, because right now we only have two tag teams. It's Matt Morgan and Crimson, and Samoa Joe and Magnus. It's like, wow, we really need to bolster the tag division here.
Which, by the way, I do like the Samoa Joe Magnus tag team.
They could be okay. I mean, they weren't doing anything else with them, so, you know, maybe it'll work.
I mean, it's not Beer Money 2.0, where when they got thrown together, it's like, oh, wow, this is awesome. But it's like, I see them doing something with these guys.
Mm-hmm. And some of the segments have been okay.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you know, I same with, like, Morgan and Crimson. I think there's a lot of potential there. I like seeing those two guys, you know. I like the idea of the big, you know, almost skyscraper tag team. You know, because I like Morgan and I like Crimson. I mean, Crimson, you know, it's got a lot of potential, and I say that TNA's got a lot of guys with a lot of potential. They just need to build them up properly over a good period of time. That's the finest thing you can do. You can either rush a guy and he's not ready, Del Rio, or you can never get a guy over, or you can take too long building a guy up and he never really gets over as much as you want him to, John Morrison.
Yeah. Yeah, which yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah. So hopefully those UK impacts are good. Hopefully things continue on in the WWE as we head closer to WrestleMania, and hopefully they stumble onto something a little more interesting. I thought Raw this week, I'll be honest, there were some problems with it, as always, and again, I don't care who's in charge of the show, so I hated that being the main angle. But I thought some of the matches were really good, and at least, regardless of how you feel about Undertaker, I think at least it gave us something substantial to talk about, and really did a better job of setting up WrestleMania than the Rumble did.
Yeah, well, I mean, my issue isn't that we don't have something to talk about. My issue is that the person we're talking about is a guy that, has more than had his fair share of run, and, it's like he's so physically beat up. This is his first appearance in over a year, nearly a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's my issue with Triple H versus The Undertaker. It's like, we saw it last year, it's like these two guys, aren't full-time wrestlers. I don't know, I just have this growing problem where I see guys that aren't full-time getting these big opportunities when, guys that, bust their butt, show up on every show, have a lot of potential and someday could take that legend status, if they're ever given the chance, and they never get it, Yeah,
well, I mean, we talked about John Morrison. It's like, I don't know how a match with Shawn Michaels never happened on pay-per-view. How is that never a feud? I don't understand that.
Yeah, speaking of John Morrison, I kind of think Kofi Kingston will now kind of slip into that role that he had, where he'll get called into on special duty to do like a cool spot. Because remember last year during the Rumble, they did this thing where Morrison parkoured himself back into the ring, and then at the Elimination Chamber, he came off the top and he tried to do like Starship Pain from like the dome that they put on top of the chamber. I think they're going to do something similar with Kofi. Either he'll be flying off of it, or like climb up to or like he won't get in at first, and like come jumping through the middle, the hole or something at the top.
Yeah, just make him that big athletic guy that does the amazing spike. Kind of like what Shelton was before Morrison.
Yes, that role is always getting filled. It's like, we must find someone to do a cool spot that will be lucky if he doesn't kill himself one of these days.
Yay!
Yeah. Right. Okay, so I'm just trying to think of anything else. I mean, Sting apparently got hurt in London.
Which that's sorry to hear. I am glad that they are keeping Sting and Hogan more as special appearance guys. And again, to throw credit to Taker, I think having him be a once-a-year guy is more effective than making him a world title holder, because that just mucks everything up. But as a special appearance guy for Mania, it kind of works. When Hogan and Sting are special appearances guys, you can actually kind of sell their matches and their appearances as special and not, a weekly thing that just gets annoying.
Yeah, I guess. There's a part of me that if it's going to be a selling point of a pay-per-view, which I think they're going to want Triple H and Undertaker to be, the guy's got to do more than just show up right before the pay-per-view build starts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like, and I agree with you. I like that they've kind of pulled Sting's in-ring appearances back, and they're moving him more into a general manager role, especially since there isn't a storyline of if he's really in charge. It's, okay, the owner of the company says I'm in charge, he's in charge. The storyline with him isn't, oh, but Sting, I think, from what I understand, Bob Carter isn't happy with your performance. It's, I'm in charge. Bobby Roode, I'm going to figure out a way to stop you from being a jackass. And that's same with Hogan. It's like, bring Hogan in. Just don't go overboard with it, and he takes over the whole show when he does appear.
Yep.
Yeah, like I will kind of spoil this. Like, they've been building the story up with Garrett Bischoff that he has a trainer that's getting him ready, as he pursues his wrestling.
Well, we all know who that is.
Yeah, look, it's like we pretty much knew it was going to be Hogan the second he said it, because it's like, okay, he's working with Gary is still kind of feuding with Immortal and his father, so it's like, gee, who has history with that faction that also would make sense to put in that kind of role? It sure as hell wasn't going to be Billy Robinson.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which I mean, that's a good role for him. My issue is, especially like when you're looking at the guys that are in that storyline, I don't think they should close the show or get too hyped up because, look, I think what this is leading to will be Garrett and Hogan versus Gunner and Eric Bischoff at Lockdown. Well, it's like, okay, look, Gunner's got a lot of potential. I think, that he's one of those guys that, can spend the next couple of years building his way towards potentially a main event status or could kind of settle into a higher mid-card guy. Garrett's shown to it looks pretty good in the little bit that we've seen of him, but I mean he's going to be green as a freaking gourd. Eric Bischoff is not a wrestler. I mean he has wrestled, but he's not a wrestler. And Hulk Hogan is a great wrestler, but he can't do more than 5 minutes. So I don't want TNA putting too much stock into that. I want them to still focus on the things I've liked the last few weeks, like what they're doing with Rude. And I like the AJ Daniels storyline that's going on again, where there's kind of this nice little new twist of, okay, what the hell's going on with Kazarian now?
Right. I mean, AJ and Daniels, I kind of well ran dry on that feud a long time ago. But AJ, any excuse to get AJ and Kazarian in a match is a good one. I think that's actually going to be the pay-per-view match, which is good. It's nice to see Kazarian actually doing something.
Right. Which. Like, I made a joke once. I said, Kazarian is probably really happy that his wife got rehired because as little as he works for TNA, he can't be making that much money.
Yeah.
It's, like, kind of the big shock was that Tara is going to get the next title shot at Gail Kim.
Who is?
Tara.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which Well, I think we're kind of going to a B-level pay-per-view, and I think this is kind of like just a placeholder feud. It's kind of like I just remember this in 1997 once The Undertaker defended the world title against Farouk. Nobody thought, wow, this will really, yeah, this is not going to set the world on fire. What this is us stalling for a month. We're going to give this guy kind of, like WWF did that a lot. Kind of like the mid-'90s, like when during the Diesel title reign, the Shawn title reign, and the Undertaker's second title reign, where it seemed like they just month to month they had a new number one contender. The feuds didn't really continue on too much. And sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't work. I mean, you don't want to. Right now, they can't. I don't want them to go back to Mickey versus Gail, even though I like those matches, because you know what, they've done it enough now where you need a break, and maybe you can, build. Maybe you need to build all this guy up a little bit. And I think there's a potential storyline there with Gail Kim and Tracy Brooks. Again, if you do it right, so I'm okay with it. Plus, I mean, it's not like Tara's a horrible worker, so I mean, it's kind of Tara at her worst will probably be better than whatever next feud is for the Divas Championship.
Actually, you know what? I'll say this for the Divas Championship. Now that Karma's back, hopefully back full time, I would think, okay, if you need a Divas match for WrestleMania, why not do Karma versus Beth Phoenix? That would be a good one.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
That would be a good one, which tells me it probably won't happen.
Well, Natalya versus Kong would be a good one, but they've got, Natalya farting, so.
Yeah, they got her feuding with Tamina, who, look, this is going to sound personally insulting, but I don't care. She looks like the women that Dog the Bounty Hunter always have to go arrest. I'm half expecting Dog to pop out of the ringside once to come in and, mace her and, put the cuffs on her.
Yeah. Maybe. I just can't get past the fact that they had Natalya fart on SmackDown.
I mean, that's just it. I mean, it's like...
Which, to me, it's like when Carlito did that whole tunnel bit with Hornswoggle, that, like, Wile E. Coyote shit, and it just made me go, it's like, all right, she pissed somebody off. Because Carlito said, when he was asked, it's like, why did they have you do that? They didn't like me. So that's why they did that.
Yeah. I mean, well, WWE creative is just so, hit and miss half the time, and most of them are misses. It's like they don't, it's like they probably did because somebody thought it'd be funny. Oh yeah, we'll have her fart. It's like, okay, that's it. That's what you're gonna do with this girl that has tons and tons and tons of talent.
Apparently.
You can't. What?
Apparently.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's kind of all we have time for. I mean, I think we're...
Yeah, on the note of Natalia farting, that's the end of the show.
Yeah. So, Patrick, I'm going to say this. I'm going to send a message to James. Let's say for the top 5 next week, we do our top 5 the top 5 next time we do the show, which might be next week or in 2 weeks. Let's say for a top 5 favorite WrestleMania celebrities.
Okay, that's a good one.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
So I guess this is it. Good night, everybody.
Nighty-night.
trying to be PC, you know what I mean?